Hi and welcome back to the latest video on the Balance Training and Coaching YouTube channel. My name is Kurt and welcome back. In this video we have just a very short introduction to body language and in particular, as it says on the title, the 3 C's. Therefore, body language, of course, is a huge subject, and you can run a course or make a video on it for months on end. Personally, I find it really fascinating, body language, the study of it, the discipline of it, and so forth. I don't live my life by it, and I do really try hard to make sure I'm just very natural in life generally, in work and out of it. That said, of course, you do need to observe certain elements when you're working, because otherwise it's just not appropriate conduct. Therefore, when you start to study body language, one way to do it, this is just one of many, is to consider what's called the 3 C's. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these. If you want me to, let me know and I will. I'll make another video. But I just wanted to give you a starting point that you can consider. Therefore, one of the C's is called clusters, and I find this can be a particularly useful feature to consider when you're in the workplace. What do we mean? Well, before I clarify this, let's just point out a bit of a sort of pandemic problem, if you like, that we have in work these days, sometimes out of it as well, in relation to body language. And it's what I call the problem of one. And what I mean by that is that quite often in the workplace you find that people have an experience of someone else with one, so to speak, one particular body language position or move, if you want to call it that, or gesture, and they make instant judgments based on that one position or move or gesture. And this is a very common example. Increasingly in business, people say, oh, don't ever cross your arms at work. Don't ever cross your arms in a meeting. It's really bad, it's really rude. Why? Oh, it means you're defensive, or means you're aggressive, or means you don't agree. Well, more often than not, when people talk like this, it demonstrates that they know very little or nothing about the nature of body language. I'll give you some other examples of one, okay? So here's another one. You know, and part of the fact in work we often say you must never yawn, it's really bad. More to the point, a very common response is, well, it means you're bored. Don't yawn, it means you're bored. Well, interestingly, no, not necessarily. In fact, I would argue almost always no. Again, that's a subjective opinion on that particular point. Technically, you yawn because you need more air. That's why you're yawning. Why you're yawning to acquire more air is debated, but classic examples are you're tired. Sometimes you've been working out. Sometimes it might be because you're hyperventilating. So there can be many reasons for it. But again, in work, yawning has come to mean to a lot of people, it means you're bored and that's it. Not necessarily. Other examples are, for example, frowning. So people listening to you and going, okay, right, so what did they say next? And quite often, particularly in presentation situations, when someone at work is presenting to a group of people and they see a frowner, as I call them, it's very common for people to say they don't agree, they're completely confused, they don't really warm to you or like you, and the interpretation is often or almost always negative, which is a shame because sometimes people are frowning simply because they're concentrating. I regularly have what I call a frowner in the room. Okay, right. And they are completely connected. They're listening, they're genuinely interested, and they're just working out what you're saying and considering it in their mind. So again, you get lots of examples of what I call the one, and it's often misinterpreted. Therefore, one way to endeavour to avoid this is to consider what are called clusters. And over time, you can become more adept at accurately interpreting what's going on in someone's head or heart or soul by considering a cluster. So what is a cluster? Well, I'll give you an example. I sometimes describe it as a cluster as being the entire sphere of someone's sort of body language projection, and therefore it can include many body parts and many positions in terms of the body parts, place and motion perhaps. So for example, let's start with this, okay? You could argue that this is open neutral. It could be anything. I could be happy, I could be sad, I could agree, I could disagree. But let's for want of an anchor for a moment, call this open neutral, okay? I'm going to build in some more elements, and you, if you wish, whilst you watch, can decide how am I reading to you as we build this cluster, okay? So here we go. What are you getting at the moment? Okay, all right, let's build in another move. What are you getting now? And as you can see, it could be, well, a bit defensive, a bit aggressive, or it could be attentive or waiting and so on. Let's build in, say, a second move, so to speak. You'll notice that you can argue that the looking away is a third aspect or move or feature. You know, what are you getting from this? Okay. Also, you notice I'm tilting my head. You can call that another element. Yeah. So let's make that the third element. So we've got arms crossed, leaning, and now the head tilted. What are you getting now? Okay. Let's add in a fourth element, and you decide, what are you getting now? You could say a fifth element is, you know, the chewing of the inside of the mouth as well. Now that's classed as a cluster. You've got sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 elements together, and you notice that actually the strength of the signals can become stronger or clearer to you when you observe a cluster rather than just one move, you know. This is a silly example, and I'm not sitting. I usually do this sitting, but for example, another example of a cluster, it might be silly, but you know that you might have lost someone in a presentation if they're sitting like this. You know, arms hanging off the back of the chair, you know, and so on. So I would urge you to be more observant of clusters rather than making an assumption about one move, you know. Do not make hasty judgments about single moves or even clusters. It just feels good to yawn, doesn't it, for example? By the way, even with clusters, sometimes staff are, or people in general, are quick to make a hasty decision or judgment. So they see this, for example, and they make a quick decision. Oh, he doesn't agree, he's not impressed, etc. Well, wait, because again, we don't often hold a cluster, so to speak, permanently. You know, I might start like this, and I might, over time, you know, I could change over time, and generally we do move in seconds rather than minutes.